The gleaming Taiyang ships descended through Earth's atmosphere one crisp autumn morning, their sleek hulls reflecting sunlight as they settled gracefully onto the designated landing zone in the international neutral territory of Geneva. Humanity had prepared for this moment for decades. Our first contact with an advanced alien civilization. News channels worldwide broadcast the historic event as diplomats and military personnel stood in formation, waiting. When the Taiyang emerged, they weren't what anyone expected. Standing nearly 7 feet tall with iridescent blue-gray skin and 4 arms, they moved with deliberate precision. Their translator devices hummed softly as they approached the human delegation. "We greet you, inhabitants of Sol 3, announced their leader, who introduced himself as Doyen. His voice came through the translator with a metallic quality. "The Taiyang Empire extends its recognition to your developing world." The tone wasn't lost on Jiho Kim, Earth's appointed diplomatic representative. A seasoned negotiator with 30 years of international experience, Jiho noticed immediately how the aliens' formal language barely concealed their condescension. They spoke not as equals, but as advanced beings acknowledging a lesser species. Over the next few days, meetings between humans and the Taiyang revealed much about both civilizations. The aliens had mastered faster-than-light travel centuries, ago, and had colonized dozens of star systems. They lived in perfectly controlled environments and manufactured everything they needed through advanced molecular assembly. Their society functioned with machine-like efficiency. What surprised the Taiyang most about humans was our continued relationship with biological systems. During a tour of agricultural facilities outside Geneva, Doyun and his entourage watched, farmers tending crops with barely concealed amusement. "You still grow food from soil?" Doyun asked, the translator failing to hide his incredulity. "We abandoned such primitive methods thousands of years ago. Our nutrient production is precise, controlled, and requires no unpredictable biological components." Jiho maintained his diplomatic composure. "Humans have always valued our connection to growing things. There's wisdom in biological systems that's difficult to replicate artificially." The Taiyang officials exchanged glances that needed no translation. They viewed this sentiment as quaint superstition from a species that hadn't yet outgrown its planetary origins. On the final day of the diplomatic mission, gifts were exchanged. The Taiyang presented humans with a small molecular assembler that could create simple tools, technology they considered appropriate for Earth's development level. When it was Jiho's turn to present Earth's gift, he approached with a small container. "This represents something uniquely human," Jiho said, opening the container to reveal a small potted plant with vibrant green leaves. "This is a modified kudzu specimen, developed by our botanical scientists to survive in harsh environments. It represents our belief in adaptability and resilience." The plant had been carefully chosen, a genetically modified variety of kudzu that human scientists had developed for potential terraforming projects. It could survive in extreme conditions and had been engineered to process toxins and produce oxygen at remarkable rates. The modifications were subtle but significant: enhanced cellular repair mechanisms, improved photosynthetic efficiency, and adaptive root systems that could draw nutrients from seemingly barren environments. Doyen accepted the gift with 2 of his 4 hands, holding it awkwardly as if unsure how to properly handle a living thing. "We appreciate this biological specimen," he said after a pause. "It will make an interesting addition to our collection of primitive technologies." Later, aboard their ship, the Taiyang science officer Unha examined the plant with scanning equipment. "Nothing remarkable," she reported to Doyen. "Basic photosynthetic process, carbon-based cellular structure. No integrated technology, no apparent purpose beyond decoration." "These humans are still deeply attached to their biological origins," Doyen observed, watching the small plant sitting in its container. "They actually seemed proud of this thing." "Should we dispose of it?" asked another officer named Hyuk. "No," Doyen decided after a moment. "It's harmless enough. We'll add it to the Museum of Lesser Species on the homeworld. It might provide some amusement for our citizens. A glimpse at how primitive species cling to biological life forms instead of embracing pure technology." As the Taiyang ships lifted off from Earth, Jiho watched from the ground, a slight smile on his face. The aliens had missed something fundamental about the plant, and about humanity. They saw only simplicity where there was deep complexity, only primitivism where there was ancient wisdom. What the Taiyang couldn't understand was that the seeming simplicity of the plant masked incredible adaptability. Human scientists had spent decades perfecting this particular strain, enhancing natural processes that had evolved over millions of years. The small kudzu plant sat in its container aboard the massive alien ship, its roots already sensing and responding to its new environment, its cells already beginning the subtle adaptations that would allow it to survive. As the Taiyang vessel accelerated toward their homeworld countless light years away, none of them realized that the most significant thing they were bringing back wasn't their scientific observations about Earth. It was that small, harmless plant quietly photosynthesizing in its pot. 6 months after the Earth delegation meeting, the human plant had become the most popular exhibit in the Taiyang Central Museum, located in the sprawling capital city of the alien homeworld. The museum housed thousands of artifacts from hundreds of worlds the Taiyang had encountered during their centuries of space exploration. The kudzu plant sat in a special display case, in the primitive technologies wing, bathed in artificial light designed to mimic Earth's sun. A shimmering force field contained it, maintaining Earth-like atmospheric conditions while allowing visitors to observe it clearly. Digital screens surrounding the exhibit explained Earth's curious dependence on biological systems. "Look at how they still worship these simple organisms," a Taiyang father told his children as they gathered around the display. The children, smaller versions of their tall, blue-gray-skinned parents but with only 2 fully developed arms, their second pair would grow during adolescence, pressed their faces against the barrier in fascination. "It doesn't do anything," one child complained after watching for several minutes. "Exactly," the father replied. "Primitive species waste resources on non-functional biological decorations instead of pursuing true technological advancement." Director Yunha, head curator of the Lesser Species Wing, took particular pride in the Earth exhibit. She had personally overseen its installation and the detailed analysis of the plant specimen. Her background in xenobiology made her the perfect authority on this curious Earth artifact. "The most fascinating aspect isn't the plant itself," she explained during a popular lecture series about Earth. "It's what the plant represents. Humanity's refusal to fully embrace technological solutions. They modify their biological specimens rather than creating superior synthetic alternatives." The audiences at these lectures would murmur and shake, their heads both amused and perplexed by humanity's strange attachment to biological life forms. What none of them noticed, not even Yunha with all her scientific instruments, were the subtle changes happening within the kudzu plant. The artificial sunlight, combined with trace elements in the Taiyang atmosphere that occasionally seeped through microscopic imperfections in the containment field, was triggering unexpected responses in the plant's genetically modified cells. The kudzu had been engineered by Earth scientists to be exceptionally adaptive. On Earth, these adaptations would have taken specific pathways, constrained by Earth's environmental conditions. But here, exposed to alien elements never encountered in its design phase, the plant's adaptive mechanisms were following entirely new evolutionary paths. Byung, a junior custodian assigned to the Lesser Species Wing, was the first to notice something unusual. During his regular maintenance check, he observed that the plant seemed larger than recorded in the previous week's measurements. Not by much, just a few millimeters, but enough to catch his attention. "Director Yuna, I believe there may be an issue with the Earth specimen," he reported during their morning staff meeting. Yunha barely looked up from her data tablet. "What sort of issue?" "It appears to be growing beyond the projected parameters." This caught her attention. "Impossible. We've precisely calibrated the containment environment to maintain stasis. It cannot grow beyond programmed limitations." Nevertheless, she visited the exhibit herself that afternoon. After careful observation and measurement, she had to admit that Byung was right. The plant had indeed grown, though minimally. "Adjust the light spectrum by 3%, she instructed. "The photosynthesis rate must be slightly higher than our models predicted. A simple calibration issue." What Yuna failed to realize was that the plant wasn't just growing, it was changing. Deep within its cellular structure, the kudzu was incorporating alien elements into its biochemistry, using them to enhance its adaptive capabilities in ways its human creators had never imagined. Despite the adjustments, custodian reports continued to note anomalies. The plant seemed to lean toward certain corners of its enclosure at different times of day. Some visitors claimed they saw it move, though such reports were dismissed as imagination. 2 months after its installation, the museum attendance had doubled. The Earth plant had become something of a sensation, not because the Taiyang had developed any appreciation for biological life forms, but because rumors had spread that the specimen behaved strangely. People came hoping to catch it in the act of doing something unexpected. "It's just a primitive organism," Yuna assured the museum board when questions arose about the exhibit's safety. "Our containment technology is impenetrable. The specimen functions through basic photosynthesis and cellular division, nothing more." Meanwhile, back on Earth, botanist Dr. Mina Park received an unexpected communication from the Taiyang. They requested information about typical growth patterns for the kudzu variety they'd been gifted. She found the inquiry odd. The plant should barely be surviving in captivity, let alone growing enough to warrant questions. "Send me your environmental data and current observations," she requested. The information that came back made her sit up straight in her chair. The plant wasn't just surviving. It was thriving under conditions that should have been merely adequate. And the cellular samples they sent showed something that made her blood run cold. The kudzu had somehow incorporated alien elements into its structure, creating hybrid cells unlike anything in Earth's biological record. "What have we done?" she whispered to herself, staring at the analysis on her screen. That same evening on the Taiyang homeworld, after the museum closed its doors, Custodian Byong noticed something alarming during his final rounds. A thin green tendril had somehow extended beyond the containment field, reaching toward the ventilation system. When he moved closer to investigate, he could have sworn the tendril retreated back inside the field. But that was impossible. No biological organism could penetrate Taiyang containment technology. He decided it must have been a trick of the light, and made a mental note to have his eyes checked. By morning, everything appeared normal. The plant sat innocently in its display, captivating another day's worth of visitors who came to mock the primitive human attachment to biological specimens, never suspecting that beneath its simple appearance, something extraordinary was evolving. 3 weeks after Custodian Byong noticed the tendril, small patches of green began appearing in unusual places throughout the museum. At first, they were dismissed as a new decorative moss installed by the facilities team. When questioned, however, the facilities supervisor denied authorizing any such installations. "Perhaps it's some kind of fungal growth native to our world," suggested one of the senior curators during an emergency staff meeting. "Our building is quite old." Hyuk, who had been promoted to head of security after 15 years of service, shook his head firmly. "I've lived on this planet my entire life. We don't have green organisms like this. Everything native to our world has blue or purple pigmentation due to our sun's light spectrum." Director Yunha remained surprisingly calm despite the growing concern among her staff. "Let's not jump to alarming conclusions. We'll have the biology department analyze these growths and remove them. No need to disrupt museum operations." But the situation escalated faster than anyone anticipated. Within days, the green patches appeared throughout the government district surrounding the museum. Thin vines crept along building foundations, emerged from drain systems, and wound around street fixtures. Most concerning was their resilience. Maintenance crews would remove them only to find they had returned by the following morning, often twice as dense. "This is becoming a public concern," announced City Administrator Jimin during an emergency broadcast. "Citizens should report any unusual plant growth to authorities immediately. Do not attempt to remove these organisms yourselves." Back at the museum, Yuna finally acknowledged what seemed increasingly obvious. Their problem might be connected to the Earth specimen. When she went to examine it, she found the containment field operational, but the plant inside had changed dramatically. No longer a small leafy kudzu, it had developed thicker stems and unusual nodular structures that pulsed with a faint luminescence. "I want this specimen destroyed immediately," she ordered, her professional composure finally cracking. "Incinerate it at the highest temperature our equipment allows." The destruction proved more difficult than anticipated. When maintenance workers attempted to deactivate the containment field, the system malfunctioned. The kudzu had somehow integrated with the field's control mechanisms through microscopic tendrils that had infiltrated the equipment. Even more disturbing, the plant seemed to react defensively, withdrawing its extensions and forming a protective shell around its core. "This is impossible," whispered Yuna as she watched the plant's reaction. "It's behaving as if it has intelligence." By the time they managed to extract the specimen and move it to a secure laboratory for destruction, reports were flooding in from across the capital city. The green growth had spread to nearly every district, with particularly heavy concentrations around power stations and communication hubs. The Taiyang High Council convened an emergency session. Grand Counselor Doyun, who had led the first contact mission to Earth, faced his colleagues with grim determination. "We must consider the possibility that this was a deliberate attack," he suggested. "Perhaps the humans knew exactly what they were giving us." Science Minister Hana disagreed. "Our analysis shows this is indeed the same species they provided, but it has undergone radical modifications in response to our environment. I don't believe the humans could have predicted these changes. Regardless of intent, we need their expertise," said another counselor. "They understand biological systems in ways we've long since abandoned." A transmission was sent to Earth requesting immediate assistance. Dr. Mina Park, the leading botanist who had earlier received data on the plant's unusual growth, was appointed head of an emergency response team. Within days, she and 5 other specialists were aboard a Taeyang vessel heading toward their world. During the journey, Mina reviewed all the data the aliens had sent. What she saw both fascinated and terrified her. The kudzu had not only adapted to the alien environment, it had transformed itself on a fundamental level. It was using the unique energy fields that powered Taiyang technology as a catalyst for explosive growth, converting that energy into biological mass more efficiently than any plant on Earth ever could. "It's like it found an unlimited food source," she explained to her team. "Their entire civilization runs on a standardized energy distribution system. If the plant has adapted to feed on that energy, then their whole planet is essentially one big buffet," completed her colleague Dr. Junho, his expression grave. When they arrived at the Taiyang homeworld, the situation had deteriorated significantly. The capital city was overrun with the modified kudzu, vines thicker than a person's arm wrapped around buildings. Strange flower-like structures had developed that emitted pulses matching the frequency of Taiyang communication systems, causing widespread disruptions. The human team was escorted directly to the High Council chambers. The once pristine hall now had tendrils creeping through cracks in the windows despite constant removal efforts. "You brought this plague upon us," accused Counselor Doyun when Mina entered. "Now you will help us destroy it." Mina approached the situation with scientific calm. "Before we can develop countermeasures, I need to understand exactly how it's behaving here. The kudzu we gave you was adaptable, yes, but nothing like what you're describing." The Taiyang reluctantly agreed to take the human team to what they called Ground Zero, the museum where it all began. The building was now barely recognizable, its elegant architecture obscured by a thick layer of vegetation. Inside, where the Earth exhibit had been, they found something truly extraordinary. A massive, pulsating structure had formed, with interconnected nodes that resembled a primitive nervous system. Tendrils extended from this central mass in all directions, disappearing into walls, floors, and the building's electrical systems. "It's created some kind of central hub," whispered Mina in astonishment. It's organizing itself." "Can you stop it?" demanded Yunha, who had accompanied them despite the danger. Mina turned to face the alien scientist, her expression deadly serious. "I'm not sure anyone can stop it now. This isn't just a plant anymore. It's evolving into something entirely new. Something That's part plant, part energy system, and part— She hesitated, hardly believing what she was about to say. Part what? Pressed Yunha. Part technological network, Mina finished. It's learning from your systems as it consumes them. And I think it's just getting started. The Taiyang capital was unrecognizable after 3 weeks of the plant's exponential growth. Once gleaming towers now stood draped in thick curtains of vibrant green. The modified kudzu had developed specialized structures that attached to power, distribution nodes, drinking in energy that had powered the civilization for millennia. Chief Engineer June stood at the Emergency Command Center's window, watching helplessly as another section of the city went dark. The plant's growth followed power lines like a map, seeking out and consuming energy sources with unsettling precision. We've lost contact with the Eastern District, reported his assistant, her voice tight with exhaustion. They had worked for days without rest, trying to maintain some semblance of control over their crumbling infrastructure. June nodded grimly. Add it to the list. What's our current connected percentage? 34% of the capital remains. On the central grid. Outlying settlements. She hesitated. We've received no communications from any settlement beyond the mountain range for the past 12 hours. Their civilization, built on perfect technological harmony, was being dismantled by a plant. The irony wasn't lost on June, though he found no humor in it. Across the city, Dr. Mina Park and her human team had established a research facility in what used to be a Taiyang military bunker. The thick walls provided some protection against the plant's encroachment, though tendrils still found their way through ventilation systems and had to be burned out daily. It's exhibiting patterns consistent with distributed intelligence, Mina explained to the Taiyang scientists gathered around her. She pointed to a series of scans showing the plant's growth throughout the city. See these hub formations? They're not random. They're positioned at key infrastructure intersections, creating a network that mimics your city's own technological nervous system. Director Yunha, who had abandoned her museum post to join the research team, leaned forward with intense focus. You're suggesting it's not just consuming our technology, it's replicating its function? In a biological form, yes, confirmed Mina. The modified kudzu we provided was designed to adapt to harsh environments, but this goes beyond anything we anticipated. It's responding to your technology in ways that would be impossible on Earth. How do we kill it? Demanded a military officer named Taejin. His uniform, once immaculate, was now stained with the plant's sap from countless removal attempts. Mina shook her head. Conventional methods won't work. We've tried burning, cutting, poisoning. Nothing stops it for long, because it's distributed like trying to kill a network by destroying individual computers. Then we evacuate, declared a voice from the doorway. Grand Councillor Doyen entered, flanked by the remaining High Council members. His proud bearing had diminished, the weight of crisis evident in his stooped shoulders. The evacuation order has been issued. We're abandoning the homeworld. A shocked silence filled the room. You can't be serious, whispered Yunha. This is our home, our center of civilization for 10,000 years. It was, corrected Doyun. Now it belongs to the Earth plant. The evacuation proceeded with the precision that characterized Taiyang society, despite the chaos surrounding them. Massive ships once used for colonizing distant worlds were repurposed for refugee transport. Priority was given to cultural artifacts, scientific knowledge, and genetic repositories. The essence of their civilization packed into cargo holds as their physical world was abandoned. Professor Subin, the eldest member of the human team, watched the evacuation from the research facility's roof. The green tide had reached the building's foundation, creeping upward with visible speed. We've created a monster, he said when Mina joined him. A simple gift meant to share Earth's biological wisdom has destroyed a civilization. Mina's reply was interrupted by an urgent call from the lab. Junho had made a discovery that couldn't wait. They hurried back inside to find him standing excitedly over a series of samples. It's not destroying everything, he explained, pointing to a specimen under a microscope. Look at this section of Taiyang technology that's been encased in plant matter for over a week. The magnified image showed delicate circuits still intact within a translucent green casing. "I don't understand," said Mina. "Neither did I, until I ran a power test." Junio activated a small device sending electricity through the specimen. Both the technology and the plant tissue glowed in response. The plant isn't just consuming the technology, it's preserving it, integrating with it. In some cases, it's even enhancing functionality. The human team worked through the night, analyzing this new development as evacuation ships departed overhead. By morning, they had formulated a theory so radical that they hesitated to share it with the Taiyang. "Leadership, you want us to what?" Counselor Doyen's voice echoed through the nearly empty council chamber when they finally presented their findings. "Communicate with it," repeated Mina calmly. "Our analysis suggests the plant network has developed something akin to a primitive consciousness, a direct response to exposure to your technology. It's not just mindlessly consuming, it's learning, adapting, and possibly trying to communicate through electromagnetic pulses that mimic your communication systems." "That's preposterous," sputtered another counselor. "It's a plant." "It was a plant," corrected Junho. "Now it's something unique, a hybrid that encompasses both biological and technological components, and it appears to be reaching some kind of developmental plateau." Taejin, who had remained skeptical throughout, suddenly spoke up. "The growth has slowed in the southern district. We thought our countermeasures were finally working, but perhaps it's achieved what it needed there," finished Mina. "And now it's stabilizing." Convincing the Taiyang to attempt communication required overcoming millennia of technological, supremacist thinking. They had long since dismissed biological systems as primitive and inefficient. The idea that a plant, even one dramatically evolved, could be communicated with as an intelligent entity challenged the very foundation of their worldview. But with their civilization literally being consumed before their eyes, desperation won out over pride. A communication array was established at the Planetary Defense Facility, one of the few systems still functioning at full capacity. Using patterns derived from the plant's own electromagnetic pulses, they broadcast a simple mathematical sequence. Hours passed with no response. The evacuation continued, with fewer than 20% of the homeworld's population remaining. Then, just as the human team was considering abandonment of their theory, the monitors flickered. Patterns appeared, first mimicking their broadcast, then expanding upon it with additional sequences. More complex communications followed, utilizing a crude symbolic language that merged Taiyang data protocols with organic patterns previously unknown. "It's working," breathed Mina, staring at the screens in astonishment. "It's actually responding." Grandy, Counselor Doyen, who had remained to witness this final attempt, moved closer to the display. His expression shifted from skepticism to wonder as the communication continued. "What is it saying?" he asked quietly. Mina studied the patterns, her expertise in biological systems allowing her insights the Taiyang scientists missed. "It's difficult to translate precisely, but I believe it's saying, it's not trying to destroy. It's trying to merge, combine. The concept doesn't translate well. It's something like grow together." As the ancient alien civilization faced its greatest crisis, the irony was inescapable. The species that had abandoned biological processes as inefficient now found their only hope might lie in understanding the very natural systems they had rejected millennia ago. "We need to respond," Mina said firmly. "And we need to do it quickly. Your world isn't being consumed, it's being transformed. And I think we might be able to guide that transformation if we're willing to adapt as readily as this plant has." Jaku. Months after the first successful communication with the plant network, the Taiyang homeworld was transformed beyond recognition. Where once stood sterile metallic cities now grew living structures, buildings with walls of specialized plant, tissue reinforced by technological components, streets lined with luminescent vines that provided both light and data transmission. Researcher Taehyun stood on the observation deck of what had once been the Planetary Defense Headquarters, now a hybrid structure of living tissue and advanced technology. At 42, he had spent his entire career studying pure technology. Now he found himself pioneering an entirely new field that had no name in the Taiyang language. "The Northern District has completed its transition," reported his assistant, Suman, approaching with a data tablet wrapped in a thin layer of responsive plant matter. "Energy efficiency is 300% higher than our previous systems." Taehyun nodded, still adjusting to the new reality. "And the inhabitants?" "Adapting better than expected. The respiratory benefits of the air filtration vines seem to be improving overall health metrics." Below them, Taiyang citizens moved through streets that seemed alive. Some still wore protective gear, a psychological comfort rather than a necessity, while others had embraced the change, wearing clothing made from specialized plant fibers that regulated body temperature and communicated with the surrounding environment. The transformation had not come easily. After the initial breakthrough in communication, weeks of delicate negotiation followed. The plant entity, now called the Synthesis by the Joint Human Taiyang Research Team, had a form of consciousness unlike anything previously encountered. It didn't think in terms of conquest or destruction, but rather integration and growth. Dr. Mina Park had been essential in developing the communication protocols. Her understanding of both biological systems and the modified Kudzu's original programming allowed her to interpret the entity's intentions when the Taiyang scientists saw only chaos. "It's not trying to replace your civilization," she had explained during those tense early days. "It's trying to enhance it, to create something new that combines the strengths of both biological adaptability and technological precision." The turning point came when young researcher Taehyun discovered that certain Taiyang technologies actually functioned more efficiently when integrated with the plant network. Power distribution in particular saw remarkable improvements when conducted through specialized plant tissues that had evolved to carry electrical currents. "It's creating biological superconductors," he had announced to the skeptical High Council. "Our synthetic materials have theoretical efficiency limits that these biological structures simply don't share." Grand Counselor Doyen, who had nearly ordered the planet abandoned, now led the integration effort. At first, it was a purely practical decision. Their civilization needed power, and the plant network offered a solution. But as more Taiyang returned from evacuation ships to witness the transformation, perspectives began to shift. "For 10,000 years, we've separated ourselves from biological processes," Doyun addressed a gathering of returning citizens. "We saw technology as the only path forward. But what we're witnessing isn't the defeat of our civilization. It's evolution." Not everyone agreed. A significant faction, led by Director Yunha, remained on the colony worlds, refusing to return to what they called the infected homeworld. They saw the integration as surrender, a betrayal of Taiyang principles of technological purity. Mina and her team had extended their stay indefinitely, fascinated by the unprecedented opportunity to study the birth of an entirely new type of ecosystem. They established a permanent research outpost that attracted scientists from both Earth and Taiyang colonies, all eager to witness the transformation. "The most remarkable aspect isn't the physical changes," Mina explained during a recorded lecture, broadcast to both worlds. "It's the shift in thinking required. The Taiyang are learning to work with biological systems rather than trying to control or replace them. And the plant network is learning precision and purpose from Taiyang technology." On a particularly beautiful morning, as the planet's sun cast a golden glow through the semi-transparent canopy that now covered much of the capital city, Mina met with Taehyun in what had once been the Central Museum. The building, where it all began, was now a research hub specializing in the new hybrid technologies. "We've completed the analysis of the communication node development," Taehyun said, unable to contain his excitement. "The network has established 53 major nodes across the planet, each with distinct specializations. It's creating a planetary nervous system more complex than anything we could have designed." Mina smiled at his enthusiasm. 6 months. Ago he had been one of the most vocal critics of biological systems, viewing them as messy and inefficient. Now he spoke about the plant network with something approaching reverence. "Have you informed Earth about the latest developments?" he asked. The full report went out yesterday, she confirmed. Though I'm not sure they truly understand what's happening here. You have to see it to believe it. And what do you think will happen when they do understand? Will they fear it? Try to prevent similar developments on Earth? Mina considered the question carefully. Some will fear it, certainly. Change is always frightening, especially change this fundamental. But others will see the potential. Imagine energy systems that grow and repair themselves, buildings that respond to their environments, communication networks that evolve to meet new challenges. Their conversation was interrupted by a subtle vibration, the building responding to some distant event. The sensation was no longer alarming to either of them. The entire planet pulsed with communication, the network constantly adjusting and optimizing itself. Later that day, Grand Counselor Doyen hosted a reception for the human research team. The event took place in a magnificent hall where the walls themselves seemed alive, shifting subtly to maintain perfect acoustic properties as guests moved about. When your diplomat offered us that small plant, Doyen said during his address, we saw it as evidence of human primitivism. Your stubborn attachment to biological processes we had long since abandoned. We displayed it as a curiosity, an example of a lesser approach to existence. He paused, looking around at the living architecture surrounding them. We could not have been more wrong. What you gave us wasn't just a plant. It was a different way of thinking about progress. For millennia, we pursued technological perfection by isolating ourselves from the natural world. We saw biology as messy, unpredictable, something to be improved upon through technology. The room fell silent, even the subtle movements of the living walls seeming to pause. What we've learned through this crisis is that true advancement doesn't come from replacing natural systems, but from working in harmony with them. The synthesis isn't consuming our world. It's helping us rebuild it into something more resilient, more adaptable, and ultimately more advanced than we could have achieved through pure technology alone. As the reception continued, Mina found herself standing beside Hyuk, the former museum security chief who had been among the first to notice the plant's unusual behavior. Did you know? He asked quietly. When you gave us that plant, did humans know what would happen? Mina shook her head. We could never have predicted this. The plant was modified to survive in harsh environments, yes, but what happened here? Required the unique elements of your world, your technology. It was an accident, a fortunate one perhaps, but still an accident. Hyuk nodded thoughtfully. Some still believe it was intentional, a subtle way for humans to transform our civilization without war. And what do you believe? She asked, gestured to the living building around them, to the new world taking shape. I believe it doesn't matter. What matters is what we create together now. As night fell on the transformed Taiyang homeworld, the city glowed with bioluminescent light. Human and Taiyang scientists worked side by side, studying the constantly evolving relationship between technology and biology, between two species that had found unexpected common ground. What had begun as a simple diplomatic gift, a plant that the mighty Taiyang had mocked as primitive, had forever changed both civilizations, proving that true advancement often comes from the most unexpected sources.